Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 37 of Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Kris. How have you been, Kris?
Pretty decent. 37.
I know.
Yeah. What month is it?
You told me it was September. I'm amazed that these days are melding into one. Yeah, it's definitely a weird time, isn't it? And it's certainly because we both live in the US. There's this lead up to the election. I don't think there's any other news going on in the rest of the world that the election.
And also, we definitely are jealous of all of the folks in other countries who are like out and about. Like I watched some European, some British YouTubers, and they're like, "Oh, we're out and about. We're just doing stuff." And yeah, we're still not finished with all of this yet.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? And I know a lot of people have been certainly asking me on Facebook about the fires, and the fires aren't near us, but have you noticed all the ash? There's ash all on our outside furniture. Yeah. The skies are spectacular shades of grey and stuff. Yeah. It's awful, really.
So 3 days ago, all of the stuff all the fires basically went high altitude, like 30,000 feet. And then we have the Santa Ana winds that are the hot desert winds that blow out to the ocean. And those came in and everything got all weird and gloomy. And so then we started getting the orange sun in the middle of the day. And then as soon as the Santa Ana wind stopped, all that ash just fell. And my car's covered. And
yeah, it's definitely something I never experienced when we lived in the UK. But, I mean, speaking of the election, not that we'll get political, but have you seen, I constantly getting Facebook ads have you seen that watch that it's a simple digital watch and it tells the time, but also it has a countdown to the election?
Oh, no.
That's its complication.
Yeah, oh, jeez. It's just a countdown timer. And it's permanently fixed, like you can't change it?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. I don't know whether it counts down and then you get like another 4 years or something, right. But that's it. But it's got 2020 election on the band. Yeah. I think you can get both with a red and a blue band.
55 something days left and hours.
So weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, what we'll do is of course we need to kick it off with the watch obsessions. Yeah. Kris, do you want to kick it off as customary?
Sure. So this week, a couple things. I still focused on One Watch Challenge. We got some more folks signed up for that. And then I have been gathering parts of movements and such to continue work on my GMT Seiko mashup. So that's kind of been progressing. I have an order that I did. I ordered a GMT movement, and this is sort of frustrating in the opposite direction. So if you want to fake a Rolex GMT, you would get one of these movements that, like the back of this thing is has the same colors and everything, and it looks close. It obviously it wouldn't pass watchmaker scrutiny, but as far as just anyone sort of look at it. And I didn't want that one. I wanted the one with the regular date window. And so I have the Rolex date on it, and I tried to switch the date wheel for the non-Rolex one. I just want the regular ETA clone DG 3800 date wheel. Couldn't do it. I have 1,000 little screws on my workbench and just disassembled parts everywhere. So a little bit of a session there trying to keep that straight. And over on Facebook, our Facebook group, and if you haven't joined, Casual Watch Talk over on Facebook, we've got looks like three or four or five, maybe. I think 5 so far for the One Watch Challenge. So plus yourself, we'll get some interesting feedback, interesting topics. There's Lee has been cracking me up because Lee has picked a very interesting, very inexpensive watch for his 30-day challenge, and we'll definitely be talking more about that on the show.
Yeah, there's been some great stories on the Facebook group. When Rob, I think it was Rob that posted that Nomon Watches limited edition bang on the nose Tudor snowflake. I mean, Steinhardt don't half take the mick, but this is a...
I was going to... So I was about to type something in there, and like, I can't even... I think Steinhardt makes good watches, good products. I've handled their watches. I've handled their products. They're well made. They're well finished, etc. But I mean, as far as their brand and as far as like just completely copying the image and concept of the Tudor, it is more than homage. I think it's into almost
naughty.
It is, and
naughty.
I can't defend them on that because I really.
And then what do you feel about it saying Nomon Watches? I mean, I bought from Nomon Watches and had no problems, but I don't know whether I'd want one that said Joma Shop on it. But
right.
Maybe
Nomon
aren't grey market. I'm not associating them with Joma Shop, but it's just weird to have like an online store with.
Yeah. I mean, and they've done limited editions in the past where they haven't had to brand it. I feel that. Yeah, I feel the same. Also, does the Tudor have 3 lines of text and they just needed to put another line? Is that
possibly?
Was
that's a good
chronometer not available? Was that
chronometer?
Chronometer. There you go.
Very good. Well, have I had a watch obsession this week? I've been reviewing a few watches. This is why the one watch challenge has been quite difficult for me, because I'm still got watches in for review that I have to glance on my wrist, but I'm trying my hardest.
As long as you showed up, I mean, in your latest video, you had your Breitling on. So as long as you're representing the Breitling in each video, but that's what'll keep you honest.
Well, that's what I'll do then. That's what I'll do. I don't think I have had a watch obsession. Well, that's a lie. I've been obsessing over. There's a watch company called Ben Roos, and I think they've recently been. They were quite a famous historic band. They've recently been reinvigorated, I say. I think they might have sold, or they got a new CEO or something. I'm sure somebody will correct me on the Facebook group. But they originally made this watch called the Type 1, which is an extremely famous US military watch, even more famous at one time than Marathon, although Marathon had a similar watch to this called the Andnak, which was basically Canada backwards. But this Type 1, it became synonymous or nicknamed as the CIA watch. Very simple dial, offset case. You'll know it if you saw it. It looks similar to a Marathon Navigator.
Yeah.
Very famous watch. And as they were only sold to military contractors or to military organizations, you couldn't buy these as a civilian. So they became quite legendary, these watches. Now it looks like they're re-releasing this watch, which for me is a great news, but the website has to be one of the most frustrating teaser websites you've ever seen. It literally has a one photograph of very dark of what looks like the side of whatever the new watch. I presume they're going to make a 1-for-1 copy, and then it has a lot of interesting history on the page. Some stuff that I didn't know on there that I just thought it sold to the CIA just because that's his nickname, but they did sell it to military contractors, and it was one of the few watches that the US government did buy and then give to the.
I see.
Because apparently Vietnam era, this was another thing I found out on the website actually, that when Vietnam hit, that's when the soldiers stopped getting issued watches.
Oh, okay.
So they had to buy them then. I didn't realize that.
So heavy on history, but not heavy on. Was it better or worse than the Rolex From the Blue with the like blue background on the side of the case? I don't know if you saw that one. It sounds almost similar.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I would have thought that was a Sea Dweller but anyway, because it had the sea and it was blue.
It sounds like it's sort of the same thing where you're like, we're just going to show you this side picture and not, tease the hell out of it.
Well, what's so frustrating is you click on it and you're like, how much is this thing? Like, why can't I pre-order it? How much is it going to be?
Yep.
Why is there nothing about the movement or anything like that? I think I've got a feeling this is going to be in the 800 to 1,000 range.
Okay.
Because based on some of the other ones that classic ones they've reissued, it's a bit frustrating, really, because it's one of those things where when does a tease become just so frustrating? You're just like, oh, I'll just leave.
You're like, yeah, I can't. I'm right. I'm no, or it's frustrating the hell out of me. I can't. Yeah, especially in this time of shut up and take my money, e-commerce.
Exactly.
Where's
the pre-order?
Going back to Tudor, going back to Rolex. I think one of the best changes they made this year was the fact that, like, not that they didn't immediately sell out, but you could go get one. That it was available immediately, and that it wasn't like, oh, here's our new thing, and then, like in 6 months you guys will get these,
Is that anecdotal, or have you seen any YouTube videos where somebody's gone into Rolex? Because I only know from Steve on the Facebook group he rang up his Rolex dealer and practically got laughed out the door.
Well, no, I mean, I've seen the new colorways. There's a Rolex dealer in San Diego that I follow.
Oh, really?
On Insta, and yeah, seen the new colors. And maybe I'm giving Rolex too much credit, but certainly with Tudor,
Yes.
That thing was within a day. Instagram was lousy with the black bay, the blueberry bay.
It went from extremely sought after to, oh, everybody's got this, so I don't want it anymore.
Yeah. Right.
No, that's unfair.
Yeah.
It did look awesome, and I loved my Tudor Black Bay 58 when I had it.
So. Yeah. So yeah, just tell us the specs, tell us how much it's going to be, and then when it comes out, and we'll put, we'll get our credit card warmed up.
So this Ben Roos actually very loosely leads into one of the first news stories I wanted to talk about you, Kris. So this Type 1, there's a famous watch, I wouldn't say modder, I'd say a watch customizer called Bamford. We've talked about them on the channel before. The reason that I'm linking it with this Ben Roos story is they've got a watch that's very similar to the Type 1. They kind of recreated it. Mm-hmm. We talked about them last on the podcast with that. Do you remember the Zenith we talked about with where it was made out of the cable from a nuclear power station or something? Yes.
And if you haven't seen that, definitely check out the BamfordWatchDepartment.com. Has got a big picture of that Zenith with the cable on it. It's cool.
It's incredible. And what I didn't know about them, this story's from Watch Pro, is that they have partnerships with the brands. They're not taking watches and dismantling them and customizing them without the permission of, they don't do Rolex, but without the permission of some of the brands that they do, like Tag and things like that. So that was really interesting in Zenith. Mm-hmm. You had to have a big wallet to be able to afford one of these, but now they're doing a collaboration with G-Shock, so you'll be able to pick up the legendary 5600 with that Bamford have customized, and I think they're knocking it out at like $150 or something, which obviously that watch is a $40 watch, but it's enough to certainly, it does look cool. Now, I don't know whether the pictures do it justice, but it looks as if it's almost got a Matrix style green LCD that they've used that almost looks as if it's slightly degraded. I don't know whether that's the picture, but if it does look like that, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Where it looks like it's a faded over, looks like almost like a Nixie tube or something like that, the way they faded the green out.
The images that they have up on the web right now look like they're all the same, so it's 10 10 30 on all of them, so I don't see a sort of a separate one, but yeah, it does have that. That's a really good description, the Matrix sort of, blinking out numbers kind of thing.
Yeah, they're sort of burning on a monitor. They're not on the Bamford website yet either. I've only seen it on Watch Pro so far.
That's cool.
Next story, again from Watch Pro. I don't know if we talked about this originally. I know it was sort of a big topic on some of the forums, but LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Group, very famously own Tag and Montblanc and a few other ones. They were going to buy Tiffany's, the famous jewelers, who, of course, like those original Tiffany, were they Patex or something that are super valuable? But they were going to buy Tiffany's, but they backed out of the deal. So Tiffany's in apparently what is quite rare, instead of going back to the negotiation table, they're going to sue LVMH.
For $16 billion, I see. Wow.
Well, that was the deal. I think I don't know. They'll probably get pennies on the dollar for that, but pennies on the dollar is $16.2 billion.
Yeah.
Is incredible, isn't it?
I know, right? Go pick up Tiffany's for less than that.
They're blaming this on the fact that I don't know whether the French government, there was an antitrust thing, but they were sort of saying, well, you guys should have known about that first. It's not particularly watch related because Tiffany's do have their own brand of watches, but it's not something that would come on our radar. There's certainly more jewelry watches, but I thought it was interesting, and whether this is a sign for some of these mega conglomerates of watch companies, whether they're feeling the pinch after COVID,
or that we're just that they're going to be allowed to buy everything. So LVMH is a French conglomerate, and Tiffany U.S. jeweler, so they're looking to do that. I wonder. That's a lot of international business going on there for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to follow, and whether they're just backing out the deal for whatever reason, or whether LVMH themselves are feeling the pinch. I'm not sure. The last time we looked at how TAG was doing it over the COVID period, I don't think they were doing the best. And that limited edition watch they bought out for their birthday that was like $6,000, and that was unbelievable. That was nowhere near that. They kind of really missed the mark with that one big time. Moving on from that one, we'll move on to another brand that's not shy of making a limited edition, and this is Seiko.
I was going to guess Seiko.
Yes, Omega. Accepted. Right. Well, it seems like even the legacy of Seiko's original founder isn't goodwill enough for them to make a non-limited edition version. So they've done a watch to commemorate the 106th birthday of Seiko's original founder. And as a big thank you to him for creating the company, they proceeded to make it limited edition.
Perfect. That's how you do.
Well, surely you want to celebrate this across multiple avenues. Certainly, that it's such an iconic person in the Seiko history. It's a GPS solar watch, 3,900 for it. It's one of the Astron ones. I've never warmed to these Astrons. I don't know. What do you think of them? And also, what do you think of the technology? I don't know how much better it is than just your standard atomic time.
So, I mean, the technology is actually really good. The fact that they can get this is a GPS calculated watch, or synchronized watch. So this is actually listening for the GPS signals, the radio signals from GPS, and then doing the math, etc., to figure out where those satellites are and what time it is and that sort of stuff. So to get that down into a watch, it is a technological feat.
I know G-Shock did this, didn't they, back in the day? I don't know if Casio were the first to do this GPS. I imagine, I don't know much about it, but I imagine it probably is able to receive reception fast and probably frequently than the atomic.
Yeah, so the atomics is based on the big, like 10, 20 meter transmitters in Colorado, etc., that send out a shortwave radio signal, that you can only really hear in the middle of the night because that's when all your electronic devices are quiet. This is actually listening for the GPS satellites flying above our head. And for a real quick primer, GPS basically works on atomic clocks in space. So each GPS satellite is flying a super accurate atomic clock. And then if you hear the signals from 3 atomic clocks, you then can figure out through relativity the difference in time that it took you to hear those 3 signals. And then you can figure out where you are on the planet. So that's a super, super basic primer for GPS. And so if watches can hear this, and the Astron system can do that, if watches can hear it, I mean, you're getting literally direct access to an atomic clock in space.
It's incredible, isn't it? Technology. This, I don't really like the look of this one. It looks like it's got a PVD coated case with the gold gold hands and gold pushes. It's a chronograph, it appears to be as well. But anyway, so that's another limited edition Seiko. I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know if you got to see this, Chris, but Jody from Just One More Watch he reviewed the Willard, the new Seiko Willard with the 6R35 movement in it. It looks good. It does look good, but this is a watch on a rubber bracelet that's $1,100 or something. Mm-hmm. It seems excessive to me based on the specs, but I don't know. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I heard about the watch, and certainly more of the same. Not to extend the ever-present Seiko gripe, but it's really hard to get interested in something like this with the movement that it's got in it and with the specs that it's got for more than $1,000. I mean, that's that, you just, once you're in the, like, as you know, we were having a continual discussion over on the Facebook page. Once you're into the $1,500 price range, there is just so much out there for specs and for design and for quality that I just don't think Seiko competes anymore.
I think it's a shame. I do like the look of this watch. They've also slimmed the case down to 42 millimeters when I think the original 6105 was 44 millimeters. Sapphire crystal, etc. There's at least two people on my Instagram feed that have the blue 62 mass with the blue dial, and it looks so good. This watch looks so good, and every time I'm like, oh, which one is that? And I look up the model number, and it's the $1,500 one with the basically NH35 in it. And my heart sinks every time. I think we should definitely spend a few minutes later on talking about movements, because I know I've had a lot of comments on my recent upload I did on the Walbrook, so I think we should talk about that later. Another news story that I was interested in talking to you about, but before we do that, let's just pause for a very quick.
Hey, it's Chris from the Casual Watch Talk podcast. As our longtime listeners know, we often talk about cars here on the pod, and that's no coincidence. Like a lot of mechanical watch lovers, we're both into cars and racing. A couple years ago, I curated a collection of automotive-inspired straps and started the Campionato Club. Campionato Club watch straps celebrate the rich history of automotive liveries with their inspired colors. Available in a single-pass NATO, two-piece, and our new super comfy elastic NATO. Check out Campionato Club on the web. That's championship in Italian, CAMPIONATO.club.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. So Chris, I said I had another news story. This one is interesting. Back and forth, we've been talking about Chrono 24, we've been talking about eBay over the last couple of episodes. And I don't know whether this is new, but a blog to watch has reported that now eBay is essentially trying to eliminate the biggest bugbear of most people who buy luxury watches on their site, which is this authentic? So they created this authenticity guarantee that you sent the watch and they authenticated it, and then it became part of the sale. I think you had to pay a little bit extra to do it. But now what they're saying is any watch that is over $2,000 has to go to them first.
Has to.
So they will authenticate it before it goes to the seller. So yeah, I mean, a blog to watch says here, it says the world's largest online luxury watch marketplace and also auction platform eBay has recently announced a major update to how buyers of luxury watches can feel safe about their purchases. In short, all wristwatches purchased at a price of $2,000 and up will be verified by a third-party authenticator prior to delivery to buyers. Ask any buyer of luxury watches online what their biggest fear is. The most often is that they will say that I'm afraid the purchase will not match the item's description. Wristwatch customers are often asked to take appropriate risk when it comes to trusting a seller's first-person description of the product. And then it says that this shouldn't add a significant delay deliveries.
Okay. And no mention of cost to the seller?
It says eBay's authenticity guarantee doesn't cost anything and only adds a modest amount of waiting time to when a buyer expects to receive their eBay watch purchase. Upon completion of the sale, the watch seller is instructed to ship the purchased watch to a third-party authenticator within 2 days. Each timepiece is inspected and then sent using a 2-day shipping to the buyer in the United States. Eligible transactions are for non-smart mechanical or quartz watches whose final bidding price is $2,000 or more. More so, authenticity guaranteed eligible watches cannot be aftermarket modified or customized.
They're really moving in on this market because they really recognize that. I agree they have a problem where they've got folks on there that are selling stuff that isn't coming across as described.
Yes.
So they're trying to fix that problem. They're doing it in a way, and we did try to get to the bottom of this, and I have not seen anyone say anything about this or how they're doing this. I feel like it's either a group of individual watchmakers that are set up in various cities, something like that. That's what it kind of feels like to me that they're doing. But on the flip side of that, whether it's two giant warehouses or two giant places where these watches go, to say period these are authentic, sure, okay, in certain what, okay, so my 2001 Omega Seamaster, okay, sure, you can have a watchmaker who knows all about Omegas and open it up and verify a couple things. But still, with some of these like brand new watches and some of these crazy super fake watches that are out there, that guarantee it's really tough to say in that you've got that stuff flying around. You've got manufacturers who are not going to authenticate. I mean, this is kind of part of the problem. And I don't know if you saw, sort of leads into what I saw. Did you see the Federico about he ran into a problem where Parallel?
No.
Yeah, so he had a and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. It's French, so it's Perrelet. So Perrier. No,
Pirelli.
No, that's a tire. Parallel. I'm going to say that. Yeah, it's Parallel. So Parallel, he had a watch from them that he had his watchmaker authenticate and was in great condition and had listed it up on eBay. And so the manufacturer just went to eBay and basically said, "Oh, all those watches that they're selling, that all these watches that this person is selling, they're not verified. They're not real." And so flagged this watch. So then Federico was unable to sell it on eBay. And this is where one of the ways that I don't like what eBay's doing here is they're kind of muscling in to solve a problem, but they're creating more issues and more. I mean, just the fact that now when I want to buy a watch that's, over that magic price range, I now have to wait for that to be authenticated. I don't know really where that's going. The seller knows where he's shipping it to, but I don't know where it's going, and then I don't know who's opening it up. And for some people and for some situations, and I'm sure I can think of at least 2 or 3, vintage Seiko or, even, some older. I don't know if I'd want just anybody cracking that thing open.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And one of the FAQ items is that vintage watches are eligible for authenticity, but what they're saying is that they'll still verify them as authentic. Well, their exact wording is vintage watches which are verified as authentic by third-party authentication partners may contain replacement parts that are not from the original manufacturer if the original manufacturer no longer makes that part. So especially with vintage watches, I mean, Todd will tell us this over on the Facebook group. Yeah. I mean, those Seikos are the difference between having one that has a dial that matches a serial number versus one that doesn't is cost-wise. And how's it? You couldn't expect an independent third-party authenticator to be experts in
every single brand, right? Exactly, every single brand. I mean, I think about some of the brands that I trade in, and I'm getting to the point where I think there's probably only a dozen people that are going to recognize some of these things. And like you said, Todd is a perfect example. Like he'll look, he's only one of a handful of folks that would actually recognize like, nope, that's a replacement dial, or that's replacement hands, or something like that. Yeah.
And I imagine 90% of I don't know statistically, maybe 70% of the watch fraud that happens on eBay, where it's fake watches and stuff, is well below the $2,000 mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Or so far in the high end that no one's been caught yet. I don't know.
This is addressing a problem that I feel like eBay turned a blind eye to for years. The amount of counterfeit stuff that's on eBay is certainly not as bad as Wish, or that which both Wish and eBay are third-party sellers. They're not to blame for it,
right.
But I feel like they should have certainly done more. The amount of fake Seikos that you see on eBay and Wish is...
It reminds me of the Amazon Marketplace problem, because it's the same over there. I mean, Amazon has a huge problem where they have tons of counterfeit goods being sold. And to compound that, they get manufacturers involved. And then manufacturers muscle in and they're like, well, we don't want anybody but us selling this thing. So then they use that power to come in and say like, oh, well, all this stuff on here is fake and our stuff's the real stuff. When in actuality, that's not the case. Then that's not necessarily the case. So it just muddies the waters, because then you hear this thing like, oh, all of this is fake, but really not. And I mean, at the end of the day, you and I have both said this about a couple of things. If you take a factory where it makes, the case for the watch, and then tomorrow they make the case for a different watch that could be sold as a knockoff or whatever, like, it's the same case, it's the same finishing, it's the same level of quality. So like, you have to really start to ask yourself, like, well, what is fake? What is counterfeit?
We certainly our very famous fake Seiko that I bought from Wish, that for some reason that video's had a bit of resurgence, and some people keep commenting like, why would you destroy it? Why not keep it? And I'm like, look, the decision has been made. Soon as Kris and I can get somewhere where we can do something horrible to this watch, we're going to go and do something horrible to this watch. I often put on the comment section, somebody's like, well, it seems like a waste. And I'm like, well, what would you rather watch on eBay? Me talking about a fake watch that I kept and I just wear occasionally, or would you like me to see me destroy it in some horrible way?
Right. Yeah. I don't think we really harp on it here. I know other channels and forums harp on no counterfeits, no fakes, and I absolutely agree. It takes something away. I mean, for you to go out and get a fake watch and it's fake, and it's so vapid and so it's gross. And those feelings are the same sort of, when you have these copies of what. And so I was like, once you start to get into that, I don't want any of that.
It's funny, isn't it? Because Rolex is, I would say, arguably over any other product, is more or less the meme for fakery, isn't it? I mean, even when I was a kid, I remember the joke. Most 80s films had jokes about fake Rolexes.
Was it Home Alone? Was the first one or the second one? It was like when she's in the airport and she's like, she asks if it's a Rolex. Yes. Oh, is that a Rolex? And she's like, does it look like one?
But maybe this has helped them over time, because rather than it work against them where people assume, oh, well, it's just a fake Rolex, maybe it's added to the mystique of, well, this is a real one. It's certainly a funny game. But yeah, that fake Seiko that I had, to your point, when is a fake a fake if it's got an original Seiko movement in it? And I suppose it's when it's got the name on the dial.
Yeah. What terrifies me about this concept and this conversation is that middle ground where Of course, if I was going to buy a Rolex, I would go to an authorized dealer. Absolutely. I would go to a trusted authorized dealer and deal directly with them, because you cannot chance this. You just can't. You're not going to not going to do eBay, not going to do a great price someplace, private sale. No. It scares me when we start talking about $2,000 Omegas and Hoyers. The Tag F1 has been absolutely replicated by these forgers.
Absolutely.
Don't think that you're immune from fake, because as you said, we see it in Rolex, it's the joke, but we see it all the way down in Seiko.
Going back to that Steinhardt that we were talking about at the start, I mean, that's a homage, but it would be a fake if the letters were just in a different orientation.
Right. If they changed the dial printing.
It's so on, and I'm sorry to keep harping on about this, everyone who's like a big Steinhardt fan, but I've never kept my views
we knew
Steinhardt.
Yeah, we knew where you stood. It's okay.
With the exception of Shinola, they're like my least favourite of the watch brands, but that's just my own opinion.
That gives you that feeling. I mean, it gives me that feeling. When I saw the Snowflake hand Tudor Submariner style, I was just like, guys, like this isn't even that's not your watch. Like you didn't make any of this.
Yes.
It's not it kind of looks like the mill sub that you can't get anymore. I mean, it's a just copy. It's really frustrating.
We've had a good old news discussion, but one story that we have to talk about, because this, I think, divides opinion more than so the Tudor. I think the Tudor's just irking me and you, but this idea that Hodinkee is now so not only have they sold limited editions of watches that then get flipped for many more times, but now they want you to insure those watches with them.
Of course.
So not only do you have the fear of missing out on a limited edition, if you are lucky enough to then own one of these limited editions, now you've got to scare yourself that somebody's going to steal it.
Yeah. I don't. So unlike maybe service, unlike maybe selling watches for profit, like making money off of buying and selling watches, I'd say maybe 3 would be insurance for watches. So yes, it's important that you have insurance so that you can replace the thing that you lost, so that you don't have to worry about it, so that something happens to it. But I feel just like first 2, there's like that closed loop that people get into where they're like, so here they're going to be like, oh, well, I mean, you have all your watches insured, right? And like, of course, like, well, might as well insure this one and insure that one. And you're just like, okay, that's important. But at the same time, like you said, with now this feeling of like, all right, so someone's going to steal it, and they're going to immediately be ripped off, that sort of thing. And the same thing with, do I have to service my watch every 3 years? Do I have to send it away directly to the manufacturer? And then the number 1, I need to track the value of my watch. I need to track how much it's worth so that I can, I don't know, like, so I can sell it later, this sort of thing. So it's those 3 that kind of together that don't.
It's definitely an interesting one. When I first heard of it, I was like, oh, here's another cash grab. But maybe, I don't know how prevalent this is, but certainly I think maybe a lot of people who might think that their watches are covered on house insurance, I mean, you've got to specially add it as not an amendment, but an inclusion
declaration. Yeah, inclusion declaration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wonder how prevalent this is. They've given an example here. Patek 5172G.
I got 3 of those, so I'm set.
Yeah, exactly. $73,700 value, and they want to charge $886 a year. I mean, that doesn't seem like a bad deal. That by any stretch of the imagination. But how much are you going to get rolled around if that?
Right.
I wonder what the actual policy documents say.
I'll repeat what I said in the Facebook group, which is, for them, it's really a brilliant idea. It's really a good idea for them, because they have an app where they have pictures of the watch, they have the serial number, they're tracking the existence of it. It's an application, so it's on your phone. So they have your phone number, your email, your contact information. So just from an insurance standpoint, if I was an insurance underwriter and you said, hi, I have pictures of the watch, I have the serial number, I have their phone number, I have all their contact information, and it's all here. Will you insure this for $83? The answer is absolutely.
I've got some experience of this in my day job or a previous company I worked at. I work in an industry that's basically telematics, it's called, or tracking of vehicles, large trucks, intelligence to do with vehicles, diagnostic codes, and sent into the cloud, so you can do some complex diagnostics on trucks, but also track them, make sure the drivers are driving them properly and stuff. And this is what the insurance companies want. It's when you see all those progressive things online where they're like, oh, have this thing in your ODB2 port and it'll bring down your insurance. They're not doing that altruistically, like, hey, you drive better. You're totally spot on here, because the biggest problem with insurance is, how do you estimate risk?
Right.
How do you speculate on risk? You need data, and things like, certainly in the trucking space that I worked in, it's very hard to work out risk based on how things are driven, because you don't know,
right,
unless you've got some data that's being fed in here. And I think this, for Hodinkee, not only are they going to be able to make a big profit from this, that data must be gold. They could sell that to watch manufacturers, like, oh, did you know that Breitling Navitimer B01 is our most insured Breitling? And Breitling are like, oh, really? Maybe we should really work on like a variant of that. I mean, we know the sales figures, but we didn't know how passionately the aftermath, because if somebody insures a vintage Rolex or something like that with Hodinkee, Rolex is a bad example, but a vintage watch of a certain type, that's valuable to a manufacturer, because they're like, well, maybe we need to reissue that watch. If somebody's going to the care to insure a watch that's 20 years old or whatever, the data's valuable.
They're estimating the value. They're keeping track of that. I mean, the data mining of that. I mean, I don't know, even if they're not selling your personal data, which they may not be, and that's, this will be in the contract, etc. Just to say, okay, yeah, we have 35 of the original Heuer X, and that information that is super valuable to a marketing company that, for sure, I mean, what watch company isn't looking in their back catalog and pulling stuff out?
Exactly. And some of that might be a shot in the dark. It might be a small focus group of watch collectors, and they're like, oh, that was a really cool one from your archives. But if Hodinkee's going, look, Tudor, we've got blue snowflakes, thousands of them that we're insuring because people are so afraid that they're gonna that they need insurance on them because their age. Why don't you knock another one of them out?
Yeah. And it means it's in, so instead of it being in a drawer where grandpa had a vintage watch and it just got forgotten, instead of being in a drawer, you now have collectors who are actively seeking these out. Absolutely.
On the face of it, you're like, oh, this is a cash grab, but this is a stroke of genius on their part.
It really is. I mean, for the data that they have, I mean, really smart. But certainly, I'm definitely, half of me is like, why didn't I think of that? But at the same time, I don't. They're using their marketing, and they're using their connectivity to folks to its maximum. To flip this for a second, have you seen their YouTube channel lately?
I have not. I will watch the occasional one.
Yeah.
I find some of their interviews dry, to be honest.
So, so they've got the very famous talking watches, but recently they've been practically flooding their YouTube channel with these personal watch stories. And I can't see them really hitting. I watched a couple of them, and they're very, I mean, they're personal stories, but it's recorded by the person. So it's very like me with my iPhone out kind of talking and sort of the background, and you don't have the audio right, and you're not have the same sort of video settings and things like that. And I was looking at their views, and they're way off. I mean, you take a regular Hodinkee video, and it's like 25,000+ easy, even if it's just something simple. And these watch story ones, which I think there has to be like 30 of them up in the site, I don't think they're hitting. I mean, they're like, there's like a couple thousand views on them, that sort of thing. It's strange. It's strange. And so they're trying a lot of different things and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. It's interesting, but it feels to us like they're going in 40 different directions with this alarm clock and these personal stories on YouTube and this insurance and there's another special edition from them and that's the Swatch, and you're just like, oh guys, what are you?
Yeah, it's funny. I think that's one of the things that really humbles you being a YouTube creator. And I'll tell a story. I was in the gym back when gyms used to be a thing.
What's a gym?
Exactly. And there was a gentleman there. I got to know the gym instructor. She was asking me about YouTube, or she was a neighbor at the time. Anyway, she introduced me to this guy who was obviously a much more professional at the gym than I was. And he said, "Oh, I'm really interested in starting a YouTube channel about fitness. I've got this, this fitness system that I've worked out." He says, "But I've done a couple of videos that they're just not getting the views." So I said to him, "Look, I'll stop you there. Were the videos something to the effect of, this is my morning routine, this is my workout, or something like that?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Look, when you're starting out in YouTube, until you get big, nobody really cares about you. They're going to your videos as, what can I learn from this? And they can't learn anything from my daily routine. They're not going to enrich their lives." But so that's why I always shied away when I first started, was my top 10 watch picks. People are interested in my collection for sure, but they're probably not interested in, until you get a lot bigger like TGV, where people then see you as and now I've got to know this person, they've got similar taste to me.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in this one-off watch stories where, sure, if it's John Mayer or it's a basketball player, they have a brand already that you're interested in the brand. You bought in, you watch them on TV, or you listen to their music. So that's a great point.
Famous person. I want to know what. I was watching Away on Netflix. Have you seen this? The new Going to Mars kind of sci-fi. And I think Heavy Citizen. I see a bunch of citizens. It's got a bunch of watch. I'm doing a bunch of watch spotting. So same sort of thing. Like if you're a celebrity, we're kind of interested. But if you're just a regular, you totally nailed it. Like you're just a regular person out the street. You're like, I don't. What does your morning routine have to do with what I'm doing here?
I think in marketing terms, they call it something like depositing in the emotional bank account, where you've then become a trusted advisor or an expert on a subject, or people like the way you present things. So then they kind of warm to you. But if you're straight off the bat, oh, this is the top 10 watches that I would buy, people are like, oh, well, I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
like,
here's Sam's Swatch collection. Sweet.
Exactly. Well, that's been a really interesting podcast there. I know we were going to have a discussion about movements, but maybe we should do this next week, because I know I certainly need to research this. And where this stems from is I just uploaded a YouTube video about a Miyota movement, and I didn't know a lot about Miyota. So maybe next week we'll do a kind of a movement special. Don't know what you think on that, Chris.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Awesome. As always, guys, we really appreciate you listening. The podcast has been going from strength to strength, so thank you to all of our new listeners. Oh, and I forgot to do this last week, Chris. A big shout out to all of our Swedish listeners.
Oh, nice.
Because that is one of the top countries. I think it goes US, UK, Australia, and then Sweden's there representing. So big hello to all of our... I should have learned some Swedish.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I called it with the yellow Rolex and the blue band. All right, sweet.
You did, didn't you? I forgot that last. So hello, everyone from Sweden.
That's great.
Awesome. As always, guys, we do appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.